Welcome to The Younger Me, a 10-part interview video series where we feature some of our very own VetTech alumni students who are currently working in various professional fields. We hope that these videos will give you a glimpse of the possibilities after you graduate for you to set bigger and bolder goals. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, welcome to our first episode of our series called Dear Younger Me. We have Dr. Joey with us today, who is currently a veterinarian and an alumni of TP VetTech. So I am Grace and that is Sarah, and we'll be your hosts for today. Dr. Joey was a TP VetTech alumni, and she went on to the University of Queensland for her studies in veterinary medicine. And she's currently working in Monster Pet Vet.
Okay, so I think you already did most of the introduction. I'm Joey. I am currently about 2 years out from graduation. I graduated from University of Queensland in Brisbane. So I did the TP VetTech diploma first, and then I took a gap year. After which I went to foundation year first before I ended up in University of Queensland.
Okay, so what made you want to study vet med from VetTech compared to like any other course available?
Okay, so I think I will just go back to when I first actually wanted to do the VetTech diploma. To be honest, I never really expected to end up being a vet. I mean, since young, it wasn't like my ambition to be a vet. I do remember though the first time that I saw the advertisement poster where they were advertising the diploma in vet tech. There was a husky in the poster, and it was a relatively new course. So when I was in Sec 4, they pinned it at the back of my class notice board. And I was quite intrigued with the idea of working with animals. So I worked really hard for my O-levels so that I could get into this course. And in the end, I eventually did get in. So even after graduating from TP Vet Tech, I was lucky that my parents supported my decision, and then I ended up going to vet school. Looking back, I never regretted any of my decisions. And it was really a good choice that I ended up going to TP Vet Tech first, so I kind of have a brief idea on how the vet industry would look like. And it prepared me, to expect the kind of challenges and stresses that I would face when I was in vet school.
Do you have any advice for current students who are looking to go to vet school, or anything that you want to share with them?
I guess it really comes down to whether you can handle the stress. I mean, definitely in TP VetTech, there is a certain level of stress already. But if you can't handle the stress there, then it will definitely be way harder when you enter uni, because in poly, we do have a lot of support from, supervisors and stuff. But in uni, it kind of pretty much feels like you're on your own. Like there are tutorials and stuff, sure, but a lot of times, like there's no kind of support from your family as well, because to enter vet school, usually it's an overseas thing. I think they currently offer it part of the course in Singapore, but still majority of the vet course, you have to be on your own. So you really have to first manage, your independence and your time management, because a lot of times lectures are not, attendance based. A lot of times you can actually skip it or choose to stream it from home. So eventually you end up, skipping the lectures and not streaming everything on time, and then you are faced with exams and stuff. Everything will just hit you in one go, and the stress can really build up. Apart from that, I mean, university is also, like, exams are definitely more tough. There are written ones, and then there are a lot more practical ones that compared to Polytechnic exams is actually way more kind of intimidating as well, because like one-to-one face oral exams and stuff. So working hard is one thing, definitely, in achieving the grades achievable for getting to uni, but definitely learning how to cope with stress is really, really important, because I'm sure that you guys know that the depression rate in vet school, and even after graduating from vet school, being a vet, the rates are quite high. So a lot of it is really managing your expectations before you get in, so that you kind of know what to expect, and it'll really be a lot easier.
Since you mentioned about the grades getting into vet school, right? We also understand that when you graduated TP VetTech, you didn't have exactly the
Yes.
what people would think that the GPA in vet schools like. Yeah, what advice do you have for the students who necessarily don't have a perfect 4.0 GPA or like a 3.5 and above? Yeah, make it to vet school, and what can they do to
get to vet school? Oh, okay. During my introduction, I did mention that I went into the foundation year first. So I think there are a couple of foundation year programs available for different universities. So like I think University of Sydney, Melbourne, and Queensland is one of them. I'm not sure about those that are outside of Australia, but there are a few of these bridging foundation programs that you can go to. I had to do the foundation year because I didn't graduate with the best GPA. In fact, my GPA was so low that it was actually less than 2, it was 1.7. So that was pretty much like a wake-up call for me. Like at that point of time, I was like, do I really want to go into, go down this industry? Do I want to continue being a vet tech, or do I want to try being a vet? So then I just tried to apply for the foundation year. And then from that foundation year, I worked really hard, got my GPA. I mean, they also count by a GPA sort of grading. I got my GPA up high enough to enter vet school. So again, getting a very bad GPA at the end of your poly year isn't really the end of the world. It's what you kind of do after that, self-improvement in order to achieve that, the end goal. I mean, that somebody once told me that there is no wrong way, there's only the long way. So essentially, opportunities are always out there. It's really what you are willing to do to kind of achieve it. Yeah. Okay.
So how was your experience like in the foundation year? Was it like different from how it was in poly? What did you guys learn? And yeah, how did it help you?
So essentially, it's like a fast track JC sort of thing. So it's like they squeezed 2 years of JC into 1 year. So according to the course that you want to get into, they will assign you whatever compulsory subjects that you need to do, and then there's a certain GPA that you need to hit as well. And then from there on, the foundation year basically is just for you to work really hard, kind of redeem yourself in order to use these new grades to apply for university.
What would have been different if you had a higher GPA? Like, would it be easier? Would you have been able to skip foundation year?
So I guess definitely with higher grades, I would have the opportunity to go into vet school straight away and skipping foundation year altogether. That being said, though, I don't really regret my decision on, slacking off a little bit on poly and then having to catch up on that after that. I guess this is very controversial in that sense, but having that foundation year actually made me have that 1 whole year to think about whether I really wanted to get into vet school. Because essentially, at the end of the year, with the grades that I had, I could actually change to whichever course I wanted. It is definitely harder, but it is kind of also a learning experience that I really appreciated having as well.
So would you have done anything different in poly? Would you have, I don't know, we studied harder?
I probably wouldn't. I know myself, so I know I probably wouldn't have studied harder. But what I probably would have done was maybe to start volunteering at clinics, like either exotic clinics or the zoo or stuff like that. But for like the students now, I think working or volunteering part-time at a vet clinic would really help in find out if this is really what you want, because in your spare time you can also talk to the vets and talk to the nurses and see what sort of life you would to expect if you were to go down this route in this industry. Yeah, which I think a lot of you will probably be doing as well when you do like your final year, right? You guys have like internships at specific clinics.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of another way where you can find out if this is what you want to do. For me personally, I didn't, because I chose an overseas internship, I didn't have this opportunity to work in clinics. So if I were to do things differently, I probably would have chosen to volunteer at a clinic.
You mentioned that you did your internship overseas. So it seems that most of your vet studies were like, overseas,
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you recommend students to actually go overseas and study, or would they would it have been better if, let's say, they enter the program in Singapore, which is like how if you can do it locally and then the rest overseas?
I personally am not very sure on how that program runs. I only heard that, half is to be done in Singapore and the other half is to be done in Melbourne, right? Yeah, so in that sense, you do save a lot financially. That's a good opportunity if local students can get into vet school this way without having to spend, too much if they're financially constrained. That being said, though, I think a lot of the first 2 years, at least from my university, were more of the foundation foundation-based learning. So not a lot of clinical work. So if it was the first 2 years, sure, it will be fine, being in the local uni. But at the end of the day, there will still be practicals whereby you need to physically, do clinical exams or dissections on large animals that would be a problem attaining in Singapore. So in terms of that, the learning probably would be more, I would suppose, more digitalized if you choose the local route rather than going to overseas straight away and, just getting exposed to the farm life and stuff. Because we did also have to do, external placements at farms. So in that sense, those farm placements really helped us in learning how to restrain larger animals, like horses, cows, livestock and stuff, which we are personally very disadvantaged if compared to, the local students who have probably grown up in this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, you mentioned studying overseas in uni, right? So what were your struggles in poly and like how different was it in uni? How did it differ, the experience and the hardships that you faced?
With your parents' funds, and it's definitely not cheap getting into the vet school. Every module costs about an average of 6K or so, 4 to 6K on average, and then we do have to take 4 to 5 modules per semester. So that chalks up to about at least $50,000 per year, and the school fees do increase as well. So eventually, one of the struggle was kind of financial restraints as well. You can't just have fun, think about just enjoying and not kind of going to lectures and stuff, because that's so expensive to even have your parents provide this education to you. The other struggle definitely is what I mentioned earlier, all the exams, practicals and stuff, all that workload. It's a whole new level in the sense that everything else is more challenging and just thrown to you. Not that much like in the sense that poly you have form teachers and stuff that you can always talk to them, but lecturers, most of them are clinicians as well, and there are so many students. I think during my cohort, the entire cohort was only about 50 or so, but in uni, in vet school, you double that, and that's kind of a lot of people to work out individually in the sense their own challenges. So we don't have form teachers and stuff that we can approach. There are counselors and stuff, but that's entirely different, and that's like a mental health thing. But in terms of having someone to talk to regarding your stress, your challenges, if let's say the subject is too difficult, there are no tutors in that sense. There is only like a 1 hour tutorials whereby you attend with the rest of the class and stuff and such. So a lot of it is self-based learning as well, and kind of forming your own study group and learning things on the go on your own and keeping up with the pace on your own. So nobody like poly tells you how you should, keep up with the pace. Everything is up to your own arrangement in that sense.
Was that the most challenging thing you faced so far in like your overseas studies? The independence?
What was the independence? Actually, no, because I really like the independence and the freedom that it gave, that going overseas gave me, like this opportunity to really just not live under my parents' shelter and just looking out for myself. So from the cooking and everything, there will be points of time whereby you wish your parents are definitely there. So like, for example, in the stressful periods where I have to study for my exam, I still had to do housework, I still had to do laundry, you know, all the stuff that you don't necessarily have to think about when you are, you know, back in Singapore with your family, because they can help out with the chores. You can always, you know, tapao or deliver, but overseas you don't have this option. Everything is expensive. In my campus, it's a more secluded kind of a region. So we don't have delivery options. We don't have Grab, Uber, you know, Max Delivery. Everything I had to either drive out or cook in advance, you know, plan out your meals well, and that sort of stuff. So independence isn't really the largest struggle. I think the largest struggle for me was maybe being alone and having to deal with everything by myself. So essentially, stress will definitely, you know, creep up to you, all the exams and everything. Everyone is actually going through their own stress, every student in vet school. So essentially, find a group of close friends that you know you can relate to and stuff, and these challenges will probably be a bit easier to get through.
If you could give like an advice to current vet tech students who are going to enter this new rat race, what would it be?
Well, it depends on where they, you know, want to choose to end up going. If it was in vet school, I'll definitely recommend, you know, trying to really start studying hard, find out where they want to go on from there onwards, which uni, which school, start, you know, thinking about applying and what the application requirements are. In terms of, you know, getting more exposure and experience is like what I mentioned, start volunteering at vet clinics and stuff. So that's for the people who want to get into vet school. For people who want to, you know, enter nursing and stuff, going just to graduate and be a vet nurse in Singapore, I think the most important advice is to really kind of see where you want to end up, whether it's an emergency clinic or, you know, a GP clinic with long working hours, essentially what you want your working environment to be, whether you want to, whether you're willing to also work long hours with low pay, because this is one kind of topic that's not really brought up very frequently. It can be equally stressful being a vet nurse, having to work long hours, not being appreciated by clients. Vets, all that, they will support you, but a lot of times clients talk to vet nurses and vets differently. So you really need to know how to cope with this discrimination and know how to speak up for yourself also, in that sense, know what you are potentially going to deal with and ask yourself if this is the sort of industry that you really want to be in, because it can be really stressful and tiring, working long hours and having the feeling of not being appreciated in that sense. For vets, not as much as vet nurses, I'll admit, because essentially when I was, you know, volunteering as a vet nurse, I did have experience as a vet nurse as well. So you do a lot of behind the scenes job, but essentially nobody kind of credits you directly. You know, you have to, you know, give yourself that self-recognition and saying that, okay, you are what, you know, kind of helps the team. So teamwork is really important in that sense. Being a vet, most of your challenges come from having to deal with what the nurses can't deal with. So your nurses are very important. It's your first line of defense against clients who want to, you know, complain or, you know, stir up demands and stuff, you know, very, you know, self-entitlement and stuff. So only when your nurses can't handle it, then the vet comes in. And usually that is at the worst part of the deal, because then the clients will be harder to deal with. So it's really coming down to how you can approach, you know, certain situations and stuff like that. And of course, being a vet, you are the one being the principal decider of how the treatment plan, everything works. Being a vet tech, you're just following instructions, right? So if you do something wrong, it's not really it's not really your fault if this is what you were instructed to do. But being a vet, you decide everything. It's a life and death situation sometimes, and one wrong decision can essentially lead to, a lot of trouble and consequences ahead. So, I mean, they both have different struggles, essentially, to be fair.
What qualities do you think it takes to truly be a great vet, despite all of this?
I think empathy is really important. So I guess you can be a really good clinician, you can be very experienced and stuff, and people know you for it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the patience to sit down and kind of listen to what the client is really concerned about, what the client really wants, because sometimes it could be a serious problem, but the client could just be concerned about, other stuff. So even if you treat the serious problem, but you didn't address the client's concern, it still boils down to that you're not a great vet because you didn't listen to what the client really wanted. So empathy is important. Of course, your skills are important, definitely. But skills, it can be sort of worked on. You can always gain experience. You can always work your way up. But if you don't have the basic kind of empathy, building rapport with clients, then it's really hard to get your clients to come back to you as well.
How do you learn to get used to all this? It really takes a lot to strong to always remember to empathize. So how did you learn from?
We do have these sort of what we call professionalism modules, whereby they teach us how to be a vet, how to empathize. So essentially, we are kind of thrown into a room whereby there are fake actors, thrown into a scenario whereby the fake actors will sort of do weird things, and then the evaluator will just stand at the back, behind a screen window, to kind of evaluate us on how we deal with certain situations. And this is part of the stressful bit of vet school, because not only the evaluator is there, probably about 10 or so of your classmates are also behind the window evaluating you. So at the end of the session, it'll be a joint evaluation from everyone on how you performed. So being evaluator, of course, you have to evaluate others also, right? So eventually you will see a lot of different scenarios, and you see how everyone deals with it as well. So that's where you kind of pick up the skills and learn how to deal with certain scenarios from there on.
How would you say that your experience in an exotics clinic differs from a regular small animal vet practice?
Okay, so essentially exotic patients, they're more fragile because they are mostly prey species. So by the time they show their illness, their weak side, they're generally very severely, in either a severe condition or, an urgent condition. So when a lot of times they present in, they're quite flat or quite weak. So it differs in the sense with dogs and cats in that you have to anticipate that every exotic that comes in could be a potential emergency. So it's quite exciting, to kind of work it up, and you really have to depend on a very strong team to support you. So in that sense, your nurses have to be really good at triaging, have to be really good at handling emergencies and being calm and knowing how to deal with it. Certain exotic species, because I mentioned they are very fragile as well, and they can be very flighty. So your nurses have to be really good in handling them as well in order to reduce this stress that could be brought upon, by handling. So in that sense, it is definitely more exciting and challenging compared to normal dog and cat patients. So that's also why I chose to work with exotics instead.
When we talk about exotics, right? What kind of animals? Rabbits would be a small animal practice. Right? So do you see lizards, birds?
Yeah, so we don't see a lot of birds at our practice, but we do see a lot of rabbits, definitely rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, and chinchillas. Yeah. We do see terrapins as well, red ear sliders.
So why do you decide to work in exotics?
Like I mentioned earlier on, It's a very fresh change as compared to cats and dogs. Back in uni as well, I wasn't really exposed much to exotics. The only exotics lecture that I had was probably only about 3 or 4 throughout my entire, uni life. So we did have a fair bit of lectures on birds, but that was about it, because most of the time, management and treatment wise, they kind of emphasized it more on like horses, cats, dogs, and livestock, not so much about exotics, which I guess in Singapore it is also true in the sense that there are not a lot of exotic clinics in Singapore. So which is why I really wanted to dive down into this particular species and try to maybe in future increase the amount of exotic vets in Singapore by spreading awareness and stuff.
You don't get a lot of lectures about exotics, so you'd say that like maybe most of the learning is very hands-on, like you learn on the job also.
Yes, so not only on the job, so after being a vet as well, you do have to continue what we call continuing professional development. So a lot of times these things you have to sign up for yourself, and they're not cheap. I recently did do an ultrasound course as well in Sydney. That was before the whole COVID thing. That course alone was about $6,000 and doesn't include like accommodation and stuff. So a lot of things you will learn the basics in uni, but if you really wanted to be good at it, so say like surgery, diagnostics, like x-rays and ultrasound, it usually requires you to get yourself out there, look at the possible options online, and see if you want to potentially enroll in the course. A lot of courses are online, but you can also do it like just take a few days off work and just go to the usually it's overseas lah. So go overseas for that short 3 to 4 day workshop, hands-on workshop lah.
What's one piece of advice, like the most important thing you would give your younger self studying in TP?
I know that I wouldn't study hard even if I told myself, so I'll skip that. But I'll probably say really to sit down and ask myself, what is it that I really want to get out from this course, like the TP vet course? Did I at that point of time really was just there because it was something out of the ordinary, something to work, it was just a course to work with animals, or was it that I really wanted to build a career out of it? And after knowing that, really just to start exploring my options and not have to wait till after university to have that after getting my diploma results, to have that wake up call with my GPA, to only realize that I should have started earlier.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dear Younger Me. We hope you have learned more about the veterinarian profession. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we will be posting more videos about other professions.